You're standing at a crowded intersection. Horns blare, engines rumble. A sea of red, yellow, and green lights pulse in perfect rhythm. Every single day, billions of us obey those signals without a second thought. They decide when we stop, when we move, when we survive. But here's the secret. Almost no one knows the man who made this possible. A man whose idea saved lives, millions of lives. A man who should be a household name, yet history nearly erased him. Archival photographs flash, twisted cars, overturned wagons, pedestrians struck down in the streets. The early 1900s. Before traffic lights, the roads were chaos, deadly chaos. And into that storm came Garrett Morgan. Not a wealthy tycoon, not a celebrated scientist, but a black man born to formerly enslaved parents. A man the world insisted should stay invisible. So how did someone with so little power change the rules of the road forever? How did his invention reshape every city on Earth and yet leave his name buried in the shadows? This is the untold story of Garrett Morgan, a story that begins not with triumph, but with a world stacked against him. And before we step into that world, hit subscribe, because some stories are too important to be forgotten. Picture this: America, early 1900s. The nation is roaring into a new century. Factories are rising, cities are swelling, and the horse, man's faithful companion for centuries, is being replaced. The automobile, loud, fast, unstoppable, a symbol of modern progress and of modern danger. Streets once meant for carriages now choke with motor cars. Engines clash with hooves. Pedestrians dart between machines they don't yet understand. There are no rules, no signals, no order, just chaos. Accidents on every corner, bodies left broken in the streets. Every journey feels like a gamble with fate. But there was something else boiling beneath the surface, something darker than twisted metal or shattered glass. America was still chained by racism. Segregation was law. Opportunity was reserved for the few. And for black men and women, every door was locked before they could even knock. This is the world Garrett Morgan was born into, the son of formerly enslaved parents, a child with barely an elementary education, a boy who would work in fields and factories long before he ever dared to call himself an inventor. Imagine being told from the start, you don't belong here, that your skin is a barrier, that your ideas will never be taken seriously. And yet, inside Morgan burned a hunger, a curiosity, a need to solve problems others ignored. From sewing machines to simple tools, his hands grew skilled, his mind restless. He studied gears, mechanics, electricity, teaching himself what society refused to teach him. But here's the haunting question. How could a black man with so little, in a country stacked against him, dare to dream of fixing a problem as big as the roads themselves? Because before the world would recognize Garrett Morgan as the man who changed history, it would first try to convince him he was destined to remain invisible. And that resistance would ignite the fire that made him unstoppable. So, how does an invisible man become the architect of modern safety? That answer lies just ahead. Imagine a man who refuses to stay still. Restless hands, a mind that never stops asking, how does this work? How can it be better? That was Garrett Morgan. Born with little, denied much, but gifted with a curiosity the world could not contain. By day, he toiled, harsh labor, long hours, a life society told him would never rise above survival. But by night, he studied, experimented, broke machines apart just to learn how to put them back together. No formal schooling, no tutors, only grit, only hunger. And then the breakthrough. A small shop, sewing machines lined up, broken and waiting for repair. Morgan opened a sewing machine repair business, simple, humble, but revolutionary, because every machine that left his shop ran smoother than before. Word spread, the self-taught mechanic was a genius. But genius is never satisfied. Morgan didn't stop at repairs. He began inventing, creating, pushing boundaries others never even saw. One day he experimented with a chemical solution, noticed how it altered fabrics, and when it accidentally touched hair, he discovered something shocking. It straightened it. From accident to invention, the hair straightening cream, a product that would make him money, give him a foothold, and fuel his hunger for bigger things. But his most important creation wasn't for beauty. It was for survival. The safety hood, an early version of the gas mask, designed to protect firefighters and workers from smoke, chemicals, and deadly fumes. Imagine the first time he tested it, the fear of stepping into suffocating air and walking out alive. Lives were saved, communities protected, but recognition, that was stolen. White newspapers refused to print his name. Companies tried to buy his designs, strip his credit, erase him from the story. Even when his device was used in a daring rescue of workers trapped in a tunnel, reporters praised the heroism of others, while Morgan's face and name were hidden in the shadows. Think about that. A black man saves lives, yet history pretends he isn't even there. Most would break under the weight of that betrayal. Most would give up, believing the world would never allow them their rightful place. But not Garrett Morgan. He refused to stop. Every stolen headline, every ignored invention, every attempt to erase him only fueled him more. Because Morgan knew something they didn't. He wasn't finished yet. And then, one day in Cleveland, on a busy street, Morgan watched as two cars collided in a violent crash. Metal twisted, glass shattered, chaos exploded in the middle of the road. He stood there, watching, thinking, there has to be a better way. And in that moment, a radical idea began to take shape. The idea that would change the rules of every road on Earth. Picture this: Cleveland, Ohio, the 1920s. The city is alive with the roar of engines. Cars clog the streets, weaving between trolleys, wagons, and desperate pedestrians. Progress has come fast, too fast, and the roads cannot keep up. Every day there are crashes. Not small bumps, but catastrophic collisions. Horses trampled, children struck, families torn apart in an instant. Garrett Morgan stood on those streets. He saw the twisted wreckage. He heard the screams. He watched as lives ended in the dust of progress. And he asked himself, does it have to be this way? At the time, the solution was simple. A two-light system. Red, green. Stop, go. But anyone who has ever driven knows the danger. Green to red, red to green. Instant, sudden, deadly. No warning, no chance to breathe. Morgan understood what others ignored. People needed time. Time to clear the intersection. Time to prepare. Time to survive. And so he dreamed of something radical. A third signal. Not just stop, not just go, but caution. That single idea, one yellow light, would change everything. It would save lives. It would bring order to chaos. It would become the universal language of every street on Earth. But for Morgan, dreaming it wasn't enough. He sketched designs. He built prototypes. He refined the mechanism until it was ready. Yet, when he stepped forward with his invention, the whispers began, the laughter, the resistance. A black man designing the rules of America's roads? Impossible. In a world that dismissed him at every turn, Morgan faced not just skepticism, but racism, prejudice, the kind of hatred designed to keep men like him silent. Still, he pressed on. He filed the patent. In 1923, the United States government granted Garrett Morgan the rights to his traffic signal. Think about that. A black man, born to enslaved parents, stood against the chaos of the modern world and forced it to listen. But Morgan had little time to celebrate, because when corporations, especially the giants of industry, noticed what he had created, they didn't just see a safety device, they saw profit. And when big money sets its eyes on an invention, history has a way of forgetting the man who made it. The question now was, could Garrett Morgan hold on to his legacy, or would the world steal it from him once again? Imagine the moment. After years of struggle, years of being dismissed, mocked, erased, Garrett Morgan holds in his hands something undeniable, a traffic signal unlike any the world had seen. Stop, go, and, most importantly, caution. In 1923, he made the choice. He sold the rights to his invention. General Electric, one of the most powerful corporations of the age, now carried his design into the bloodstream of America. And almost overnight, everything changed. Cities that once drowned in chaos began to breathe. Street corners once soaked in blood grew calm. Pedestrians walked with confidence. Drivers moved with rhythm. The roads, once a battlefield, began to feel safe. But here is the tragedy. As the light spread, Morgan's name dimmed. The credit shifted. Corporations took the glory. White America's memory chose to forget. In newspapers, the invention was praised. In boardrooms, profit soared. But in the public story, the black man behind it was missing. Systemic racism worked quietly, like a thief in the night. Stealing not his invention, that was already changing the world. But his recognition, his legacy. Imagine the bitterness. Standing on a street corner, watching drivers obey the lights you designed. Knowing every family arriving home safely owed you their lives. But hearing no one speak your name? Archival footage shows traffic flowing, orderly, smooth. The world moving in sync to his invention. Yet the inventor himself? Invisible. How does history forget a man who shaped every road we walk, every street we cross, every journey we take? That question is the wound Garrett Morgan carried. And it's the question we must ask ourselves today. Because if a man who gave the world safety could be erased so easily, what other names, what other legacies lie buried in the shadows? And the story of Garrett Morgan's aftermath reveals just how much was lost and how long it took for the world to finally remember him. The world has moved on. The lights are everywhere now, red, yellow, green, guiding the flow of life. But the man who gave that order to chaos was fading into the shadows. Garrett Morgan grew older. His inventions should have made him a wealthy man, a celebrated figure, a name carved into the foundations of modern America. Instead, recognition was scarce. The system had taken his ideas, but not his story. In his later years, money grew tight. The same man who saved countless lives found himself fighting just to keep his own afloat. And then, a cruel twist of fate. The man who gave the world vision, safety, clarity on the road, slowly began to lose his own sight. Blindness crept in. The world around him dimmed. Imagine the loneliness. Imagine standing at a street corner, hearing the rhythm of the lights you created, but unable to see them. The hum of engines, the shuffle of feet, the invention that defined every road on Earth, invisible now, even to him. Yet his name still missing from the story. Generations passed. Drivers obeyed his signal, but knew nothing of the man behind it. A legacy stolen, buried under silence. But history has a strange way of resurfacing. Decades later, long after Morgan's death in 1963, some communities began to honor him. Schools were named after him. Roads carried his name. Black history programs told his story, refusing to let it vanish completely. Archival footage, children in classrooms learning his name. Plaques, memorials, honors that arrived far too late. Because Garrett Morgan gave the world order from chaos. He made the streets safer. He changed the rhythm of modern life. But he paid the price of being forgotten while alive. And that is the weight of his story. The triumph, the injustice, the legacy. But is his story really over? Or is it only now, as we speak his name again, that Garrett Morgan is finally being remembered and finally being seen? Picture the world today. New York, Los Angeles, London, Tokyo. Millions of intersections, millions of glowing signals, red, yellow, green. Each one pulsing like a heartbeat. Each one a quiet reminder of a man history almost erased. Garrett Morgan, the son of formerly enslaved parents, the self-taught inventor who stared into chaos and built order, the man whose vision protects every driver, every walker, every child crossing the street, every single day. His lights don't just guide traffic. They whisper a message that even against impossible odds, one person can change the world, but only if we refuse to forget them. So if Garrett Morgan's story moved you, don't just watch. Be part of his legacy. Share this video and subscribe right now so more untold stories like his rise to the surface. Together, let's keep his memory alive, so that every red, yellow, and green light beats with his name.